was the layout of this cut block mostly influenced by topography? Was that how the way those decisions were made for the shape?
Partly topography, and it's partly the equipment chosen to harvest it. So this one here on this side was harvested using a cable grapple yarder system, and that is a tower. Essentially, it sits on tracks and has a cable that comes out into what we call a hullback or a block, and returns back to the yarder itself. And then off of that, we can hang different kinds of tools. And in this case, it was a grapple. So that's a tool that comes down off of the clothesline and can pick up a single log or a group of logs and bring them back to the road or to the landing where it is.
So the yarder would have been on this road?
The road, yes.
And then so then there was a cable, a suspended cable running down, and what exactly was it attached to at the other end?
Well, that can vary, and again, this is another operational consideration to plan with a cable yarder. You can actually put a machine back, it goes to a backhaul. So there's different ways to do it. You can have a spar tree. So that tree, you have someone climb up top and cut off all the limbs off of it, and that gets lashed back to other trees and other anchor points.
So you're basically treating that tree as a post.
As a post with a block on top that you're running through. And then the other one is to put that same apparatus on another machine, like a road building or an excavator that would be also used to build the road. Then after it's finished building the road, could go down there and then operate as that piece of equipment.
So you've got a suspended cable, and then
Yes.
you have, in this case, you called it a grapple.
Yes.
So that would be able to move up and down that cable, and then could it lower itself
Yes.
as well? And then that would be used to grab the logs and then bring them back
Yep.
to the landing.
Yep.
Was that involved in harvesting at all, or was that device strictly, or that machinery strictly about moving the cut logs?
That's strictly for moving the logs from where they lay on the ground to the road to be harvested, to be loaded onto a truck or processed. So there's a couple ways you can do this. In this setting here, we had hand fallers down there who hand felled the trees.
So that means you had people who were not in machinery and they were using chainsaws to cut the trees.
Correct. Yeah. And then once they were felled, they then walked the tree, cutting all the limbs off the tree, and then they bucked the tree to length. So they have specs that they have to meet for diameter and for length and for the species, and they meet those, and then they cut the log lengths out of the tree that are required.
And those specs are based on what the mill is looking for, is that?
The mill. So before you start harvesting, you have a sale for these logs. Hopefully you do. And that buyer has specifications for what their equipment can handle. So if it's a plywood mill that's making peelers, they have a certain log length and diameter and a grade that they need to achieve. Whereas a hydro pole would have a very different, would have measurements for taper and diameter and for a very long length.
For you. I'll interrupt because as an American, when you say a hydro pole, I have no idea what you mean. You mean
a power
a
pole.
Utility pole for running
Utility
powers
pole.
or telephone
Yeah.
lines. Yeah. Sorry, keep interrupting. So you're saying that even with the same harvest, depending on what those trees, what the mill is going to be turning them into, they might be bucked in very different ways or cut to very different specifications in the field before those logs are removed from the field.
Yes, yes. So generally for hand falling, we're doing that down there as well. But there are, we can just hand fall though, and then have the grapple pick up the whole tree and bring it up here, and then we can do that work up here on the landing. And then it ends up being less work for the grapple, because instead of going to grab 3 logs for that one tree, he's now grabbing the whole tree, bringing the whole unit up here, and then placing it up here to be dealt with. So, and then that could be a hand job by a person with a chainsaw, or it can be done with another piece of equipment called a processor, which is another equipment that looks like an excavator, but instead of having a bucket on the end of it, it has a head with a saw and a grapple. And so it can pick up the log, and then it can actually drive that log through the head, and then as it does that, it cuts the limbs off, and it's also measuring the diameter. The operator of the machine's noting what species he picked up, and then he's calculating the volume as it goes through the head, and the computer's telling him when to cut. And then once he reaches that bucking length, it will actually cut the log there, and then he can then take it and sort it and put it in the sort pile for that grade that they're selling So all the similar logs are going on the same truck to the same mill, and they're not having to be sorted elsewhere.
Okay. And so, thinking back to the harvest here, sorry, did you call it, was it a cable yarder? Is that
a grapple cable yarder?
A grapple cable yarder.
Or a swing yarder.
And so, did you, I see that this road is kind of on a high point here in relation to that. Was that part of the idea with putting the road here so that the yarder could be at a relatively high point and make it easier to pull those logs in?
Road building is another very important consideration. So when this road was built, these blocks weren't laid out or planned yet, but there was some reconnaissance work done in the area, and there was some thought to it. And so when you build a road, sometimes you build a road specifically just to access one block. And in the coast, our wood value tends to be very high, and sometimes it's very economical just to build a road specifically just to get to something specific. But in this case, it was built to access something much further. So there are other considerations that were put into this other than this block.
Jeremy, are there other types of machinery that could have been used to to move the logs to the road on this cut block here?
Yes, there is. If we had access down to where the slope becomes less than 30%, we can now consider other operational equipment such as hoe chucking and skidders. And those are two different pieces of equipment. A skidder is on wheels and has different ways of picking up logs on the back of it and then dragging the tail end of the log through the bush to the landing.
So it's a vehicle that would move in, grab the logs, and then drag them out to the landing.
Correct. Yes.
And then the limitation here is that this slope this slope right here was too steep. But if we'd had a road coming in at a lower slope into this cut block, for example, and that would have been able to work.
Yeah. So say if we went north or south on this road and then traversed off this road, coming down at an acceptable grade into this area, that is one way of doing it. Mm-hmm. It's another costing consideration to plan in your block layout and road building. And it gets to be a point where maybe that's not cost effective, and just having everything yarded up might be the more economical way to go. The other piece of equipment that could have been used and often is on sites is called a hoe chucker, and that's where in the U.S. they call it shovel logging, and you pick up one log and then it puts it on the other side of the machine, and it's just forwarding and kind of leapfrogging all the logs up the slope.
So it's just picking up a log and setting it down at a different location without the vehicle actually moving. And then it moves to a different spot and then just kind of keeps shifting that stack step by step?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you have equipment available and the economics work, sometimes you use all three of these in combination with one another. So you may set up one single line for your yarder, and there is delay and cost in resetting the yarder as it moves down the road here, because that back spar and the back piece of hardware for the whole assembly needs to move along the back of the cut block as well with the yarder. But if you have a skidder bringing the logs to the path that that grapple from the yarder is taking down into the block, you can just work from one point and work all the wood out. Same thing with a hoe chucker. A hoe chucker could actually bundle all the wood into bundles for the skidder to come along and just pick up one bundle and then forward as well.
So when thinking about which type of equipment to use, is it mostly the slope and the road access that's the determining factor, or are there other factors that come into play in deciding how to get the logs from the cut block to the landing?
Those are two very big considerations. Ultimately, anything we do in the woods is determined by the value of the timber for the volume we're going to yield from the site.
So some of those approaches are more expensive than others, and if it's high value timber, it might be worth taking a more expensive approach.
Yeah. And it may not even be worth taking every tree out of a site, so there are even more expensive ways to extract the wood out of the cut block, such as heli logging, and where we can do single stem selection and go through and fall only the trees of high value or the specific to our needs, and extract those with the helicopter. And there are times when that's economical to do, and it's you can work on any steepness of slope with that.
Okay. So this cut block is kind of interesting. We've got the road going through the middle of it. So half of the cut block, or I guess one cut block, is below the road. So the issue is kind of moving the logs upward. Whereas looking back this direction, that cut block is above the road. So it's about moving the logs downward. Can you talk a little bit about the machinery that would be well suited would it be the same machinery or different machinery for cutting on this block here?
Well, because we got 35 to 50% slopes here, we're not going to even consider putting a skidder or a hoe chucker on here, like we maybe possibly could have.
It would be too steep for them to be driven safely without.
Yes. Yeah. We could certainly use the grapple yarder on this slope, and we didn't in this regard, in this case. But we, if we had, and we traditionally would have, the operating cost would have been a little less because we're pulling logs down with gravity here. So the yarder machine is actually doing less work and burning less fuel in this regard. Whereas this one, your hourly costs are a little higher on the yarder machine or any machine having to work against gravity.
With this steep slope, would you have had to use the cable yarder? Would you have had, with the grapple, would you have had to use a spar tree up at the top, or would you have been able to get some equipment up there to anchor the other end of the cable?
So in this regard, we have a road up there.
Oh, okay.
And so yes, we could put another, put a fixed point just off of something very heavy up there. We could put an excavator with a block on top of that. We could find a spar tree. Spar trees are a little bit hard to find sometimes because in second and even third growth timber, your density and your volume size of tree are less.
Got it. So even though the slope here is too steep to have vehicles moving up and down the slope, there is road access to get a vehicle up to the top, even if that vehicle then can't move through the cut block.
That's right. Yeah.
Got it. Earlier, Jeremy, you mentioned that this lower cut block was relatively square-shaped, but you said the upper cut block is kind of shaped like two funnels or two fans, and you said that was based on the equipment. Can you explain why we have this shape of these cut blocks?
Certainly. So traditionally we would use a yarding system here, but in this was actually part of a demonstration and logged in 2016 as part of that demonstration. They put two new pieces of equipment that are now starting to be introduced into industry, and that is...
So the manufacturer of the equipment was using this as a demonstration of the equipment they were selling. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. And so they put two different tethered machines on here, and so that's why we have two different funnels shaped patterns here.
So there were two different machines, one was located in each of these funnels. And
Yeah.
what do you mean by a tethered machine?
So the tethered machine works off of an anchor at the high point. So like I said, we have a road back there, so we're able to either drive, either build an anchor into the ground or tie off another piece of machinery up there. And so on our left side here, as you look up to it from the road, we have one that was anchored to trees and to the ground, and that was a harvester forwarder. And it was a machine that's actually on rubber wheels and tracks, and it had like a scorpion-like tail arm that comes off of it. It's able to grab onto the base of a tree, cut the tree, fall the tree, and then run the tree through the head, limbing it and cutting it to length. And then
so in that case, it wasn't hand falling. It was the piece of machinery itself was cutting the trees and limbing and bucking the logs.
Correct. Yes. So one machine did all the work.
And then did it carry the logs out as well?
Yep. So and there was two different scenarios with this one that the manufacturer demonstrated. One was a forwarder that was able to work off the tether to pull itself up and down the slope and reach out and grab the logs that had already been cut and felled and bucked to length and put it on its own back and then bring them down and then unload them here at the roadside. And then there was one that was an all-in-one, so it would actually fall the tree, cut the tree, load the tree, bring the tree, transport the tree down to the bottom to the road here.
Okay. And so that tether, so basically there was a cable anchored to the top that was then attached to that machine that could kind of reel in or reel out as the machine moved up or down the hill. And did the machines use the cable to pull themselves up?
Yes.
In addition, or is it more just as a to give them extra stability, and the wheels are mostly what's driving?
The engineering design of all these tethered systems is such that it's there for safety, not actually pulling or driving the machine itself.
It's to prevent if the vehicle becomes unstable in a bad spot, it's to prevent it from rolling or tumbling or otherwise sliding down the hill.
Yes, but generally the engineering of these machines and the footprint and the weight distribution of it, they are very self-supporting on these slopes themselves. It's when they go to move and swing that they end up tugging on the line a little bit. They would otherwise roll over if they didn't have that line. The right side had a tracked machine, very much looked like a hoe truck, a chucker or a processor. It had a harvesting machine.
When you say a tracked machine, it has tracks that it drives on instead of rubber tires.
Yes, it looked like an excavator. It's like the head was a harvesting head on it, and that one worked with a winch system at the top called a ROB, a remote control operated bulldozer. And essentially that is a bulldozer that sits at the top road there. It buries its blade in the ground and anchors itself. And then it has two drums on it that are paying out cable and bringing cable back in. There's no operator in the machine. It's a robot that's working with the harvesting machine at the end of that cable system. And all it's doing is just regulating that tension on the end of that cable. And the bulldozer pretty much just idles. It never really gets up to an operating RPM.
So it's just functioning to give slack or draw in cable.
And be an anchor.
Be an anchor.
Big mass, an anchor.
Okay.
And then on the end of that is the harvesting machine that's now going up and down the slope, harvesting and then moving the wood or chucking the wood down the slope as it's working.